All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to How to Stop Procrastinating Tomorrow. What an interesting topic, and I really appreciate you all coming along to today's webinar. It's the 1st of December. Can't believe it, as Gavin says in the chat, it's the 1st of December. Hopefully 2020 is coming to a kinder, nicer end than what it's been. It's certainly been a tough year for most of us, 2020. And this is a good opportunity to start thinking about how we work, how we procrastinate sometimes, and how to sort of kick off into 2021 in a slightly better mindset, or with a better start to the year than what 2020 was for all of us. So if you haven't done a session with me before, my name's Matt Cowdroy. That's me dressed as a ninja, which I don't do very often. I've only dressed as a ninja a couple of times for particular events. It's normally more of the corporate style of things. Here are my contact details for you. If you feel like staying in touch, my email address, you can contact me on LinkedIn and on Facebook. We are Think Productive Australia. That's our business. So very happy for any of you to contact me with questions or comments after today's session. Everything we do at Think Productive is based around this book called How to Be a Productivity Ninja, written by Graham Alcott. Graham is from the UK, and I came across this content about 7 years ago when I bought this book and loved it so much that I bought the license to Graham's materials, training, bought the license to his company, if you like, for Australia, New Zealand, and at the moment doing a lot of work in Asia as well. What this is all about is, you can see it in the subtitle of the book here: worry less, achieve more, love what you do. Our mission at Think Productive is to help people enjoy their work. One of the statements in our mission statement is where no one dreads Monday mornings. So we really our goal and our aim is to help people love their work and therefore love their life. So this is a wonderful book. I'll share with you at the end how you can access a digital copy of this as well. So let's get into it. Let's talk about procrastination. What is procrastination? And I really want to thank you all for joining us today. Interesting that it's a procrastination webinar, and we've had probably about a 40% rate of people turning up compared to people who registered for this webinar. So some people are still procrastinating about even coming, but that's interesting. So what is procrastination? Firstly, you're not alone when you're thinking about procrastination. There are just check my number here, 1.5 million Google searches a month around the concept of procrastinating. So there's a lot of people thinking about the fact that they do procrastinate and what can they do about it. And like a lot of us tend to do, go to Google for the answer. So when we define procrastination, let's really think about what is it. Like, obviously we know what it is, and that's why you're here at the webinar today, but it's good to put it in some words. A delay in conjunction with subjective discomfort. So we know that it's uncomfortable. When we're procrastinating, we're delaying things, and we already know that it might be doing our work, our life, our health, our relationships, some harm of some sort, some discomfort. The illogical delay of behavior. If we've decided that something's important, if we've put something on our to-do list, or as I'll talk about shortly, in our second brain or our master action list, just some of the language we use at Think Productive. If we've put it on there and we've decided that it's an important thing that we should be doing, it's illogical that we should be putting this thing off. And a bit more of a harsh or hard-hitting definition, if you like, self-harm. So where procrastinating is a form of self-harm, where why are we doing this to ourselves? So as I talk through some more of the content here, this will become a little bit clearer as to actually why we procrastinate. Because if we want to think about how to stop procrastinating, obviously one of the first things we need to do is work out why we're doing it. So why do we procrastinate? Hello, lizard brain. There's a part of our brain called the amygdala, and this is also called our reptilian brain. It's at the base of our brain. The amygdala is responsible for our primal instinct. It's responsible for our fight and flight. The amygdala is the part of our brain that we share with lizards. That's why it's the lizard brain. That's why there's the little lizard tail here, as the ninja can start to see their lizard brain here. What the amygdala does, it's responsible for keeping us safe. It's responsible for letting us or helping us not stick our neck out too much, which is sometimes a good thing, but in everyday life, it can be a hindrance as well. It's the thing that stops us from doing things, which can cause procrastination. So when this lizard brain is fired up, we get small. It's fight and flight. We run, we hide, or sometimes we fight, and we might be overreactive to things as well. Now, this is the cause of some of our procrastination. It's almost like an inner fear of moving forward, an inner fear of doing these things. Now, our lizard brain, or our amygdala, at the moment, particularly in COVID, is getting stronger in a sense. It's getting more reactive. It's being fired off more often. We're under a lot more stress at the moment, particularly with COVID. So this is becoming a more regular reaction. And I'm sure you're feeling it, and I'm sure you're seeing it. You're seeing more people being reactive out there in public. We're generally feeling a bit more reactive and tense, if you like. So this lizard brain is taking over the rest of our brain. It's called an amygdala hijack, and stops the rest of our brain working as the way it should. So we can just do some nice deep breathing to offset this. But let's go a bit further into this idea of the lizard brain and why this is causing procrastination. So there's 4 reasons that Graham developed when he was really researching and thinking about procrastination that we procrastinate. And the acronym here is DUST. It's a nice, easy one to remember. And the point of DUST is, if we can define why we're procrastinating, we can find the solution. And I was talking about the lizard brain. That relates to the scary part there, but it also has an element in all of these 4 elements. So let's talk about them one by one. Some things are difficult, so we procrastinate because things are difficult. This is fair enough. Some things we put on our to-do list, or some things we're asked to do, they are genuinely difficult things. So if we can identify that, if we can add this definition to why we're procrastinating, we can get some help. We can do some more research. But most importantly, asking for help is a really key part when we're finding things are difficult. Now, some things are undefined, and we see this as we work at Think Productive with lots of clients, and we look at their to-do lists and we help them with their project planning. A lot of things they have written down are not defined well enough. So when something's not defined, we don't know what to do. We've got a project written down, Project X, but we haven't actually written down exactly what we need to do for Project X. So that causes procrastination because it seems too hard to do Project X. So once we get down and define it into smaller elements, we can move forward better. We can choose where to start. Some things are scary. This is where the lizard brain part of this comes into it. We often have an inner fear around finishing things, because when we finish something, we're going to get feedback, which can seem as judgment. In his book, Linchpin, Seth Godin talks about this. He talks about artists, and he talks about why so many amateur artists don't hang their paintings on the wall. They put them all at the side of the studio. And when you ask to see them, they'll say, oh no, they're not finished. Those artworks are not finished. Whereas they are finished. They just haven't crossed that threshold of saying, I'm finished, right? And that's from Linchpin, Seth Godin. How this relates to our work is, sometimes we don't want to finish things. Sometimes we don't even start things because they're scary. So once we know these things are scary and we define that, once again, it might be a case of getting someone to check it, getting some opinions from other people, getting someone to work on it with you. And also in Linchpin, Seth uses a phrase of ship it, and S-H-I-P. And I love this phrase, ship it. It just means keep things moving and don't get stuck. And another part of procrastination is tedious. Sometimes we just have tedious things to do, but if we've decided they're important, we really need to find a way of just getting through these tedious things. And I'll talk shortly about the use of timers, the use of buddies, to help us get some of these tedious things done. And once again, if we can just identify that this is why we're procrastinating, we can find a strategy or a solution to help us move forward. So this acronym DUST can really help. Firstly, find find that we're procrastinating, work out why, and then we can more easily find a solution. Now, what can help with this idea of defining things better and getting clearer on our outcomes is the use of a second brain. This is a big part of what we teach at Think Productive, the use of a second brain. We can't store everything in our own brain. Our own brain's not good enough. So we need a second brain. The second brain could just be pen and paper. It could be a digital system. It could be something like Todoist or Evernote or OneNote, Outlook tasks, Microsoft To Do. There's a whole range of tools we can use as our second brain. This is what we call our master action list. So this is where we store our master action list, which is everything we need to work on, everything we want to do in the future, everything we've thought about, and basically getting everything out of our brain into this system. The point of this is it clears up our own brain for doing the work. And in his book, Getting Things Done, David Allen has a lovely phrase, which is, the mind is for having ideas, not holding them. Or it might be the brain is for having ideas, not holding them. So the brain is here to be creative, not just to store information. So the idea here is get everything out of your brain and into a system. It can be pen and paper, it can be digital, doesn't matter. And we cover this in detail in our workshops, but the concept's pretty straightforward. If you start by just writing down some good lists of everything that you're thinking about, everything that's going on in there, that will clear your brain and it'll enable you to start working on things with more clarity. Now, part of this second brain is splitting things out between projects and actions. Let's start with actions, because actions in a sense are easier. Actions are, what do I need to do at the specific level, being really specific of what do I actually need to do. Whereas projects are the grouping of those actions, if you like. If there's more than a couple of actions that relate to a similar thing, that becomes a project. So what we recommend is having a project list as part of that second brain. And that becomes like a high level table of contents, if you like, or a higher level grouping of what's going on in your life and your work. And then the master actions list relates into that project list. So it just helps us start to identify at different levels the things that's going on in our life. And the project list at that higher level enables us to have like a higher view of what's going on. So have a think about this. If you've got your to-do list and you've got 20 or 30 things on there at the moment, if you actually then do a brain dump and get all the other things, you probably end up with 100 things on that to-do list. That's a lot of things to think about. So if you can then keep those, but if you can group them into projects, you might end up with 5 or 6 or even 10 projects. That makes it easier for you to have this overview of what's going on. And the reason for this is to gain clarity. So we're getting clarity by getting everything into these lists, thinking about why we're procrastinating, and getting clarity as to what are we going to work on, and then that makes it easier. Now, another part of when we think about procrastination and we think about why we procrastinate, sometimes it might be because we just don't have high levels of attention in that moment. And I like to link the word energy to attention as well. Attention is the most important thing we've got when it comes to being productive, when it comes to working and getting things done. It's how well can we focus? And I'm about to talk about some of the distractions that happen and how to deal with that. Firstly, I want to share with everyone that we've got 3 levels of attention. Proactive attention is when we're totally focused, when we can really get down and get some great work done. We probably only get about 2 hours of this a day. About 2 hours. We need to protect that proactive attention time and make sure that in that time, we're getting most of our work done. And you can get most of your work done in those 2 hours if you really do it well. Active attention is most of the rest of the day, rest of the week, we're working, we're functioning, but we're not as in the zone. Now we can move between these two, or we can help ourselves have more proactive attention by hydration, nutrition, movement, breathing, having breaks, these kind of things. And then there's inactive attention. Inactive attention is when we are pretty brain dead with respect. It might be 3:30 most afternoons, it might be Friday afternoon. Inactive attention, we're feeling a bit numb. So that's okay. In those moments, we can do some low energy things. And this is a good thing about having a really clear second brain and master actions list. We can even identify some things as low energy tasks, filing, even some phone calls, even having a meeting if it's not on a deep thinking topic. Like some exercise is a good idea when we're in inactive attention. So start to think about your week and your day, and as where you have, the most important thing here is where do you have your best attention? So think about that. If you're taking notes, just make a note of when you think your best attention is. Most people it's in the morning, but it varies, particularly when we work with younger people and university students as well. They're often late at night. So it does depend on your habits and what you're used to. Now, a way to help us get more focused attention is a technique called the Pomodoro Technique. The Pomodoro Technique comes from an Italian whose name escapes me at the moment, speaking of attention, but Pomodoro means tomato in Italian. So Pomodoro Technique, Francisco Cirillo, I think it was. What this is about is using a timer to work in 25-minute sprints. And the 25 minutes is not a must. You can, when you're starting, you can try 15 minutes or 10 minutes, doesn't matter. But working in sprints, it's about managing all the distractions around you, setting a timer and working in a sprint. Now, when you've identified why you're procrastinating and what you need to do about this, getting in this sprint zone can really help. And you will find you can get so much more work done when you're working in this sprint. So this is the idea of the Pomodoro Technique. And you don't need to use a fancy timer. You can just use the countdown timer on your smartphone, for example. But the idea is working in sprints. Really important that we get to this real focus, and you can get so much work done. The other part of procrastinating is a concept called eating frogs. Now, a lot of you have seen this if you've done our other workshops. We always talk about this. This originally started from Mark Twain, and Mark Twain, I paraphrase, but basically said, if you need to eat a frog today, when's the best time to do it? First thing in the morning. And then what happens? Everything after you eat that frog isn't as bad. So the frog is that thing we're procrastinating about. So I encourage you to think about some frog hunting. Frog hunting is quite a fun way to get this in your mind. And you can do this with your teams. You can do this with colleagues. You can do it with a buddy. You can say, let's do a frog hunt. And it's great if you're working from home. You can do a virtual frog hunt. It's essentially identifying to each other what's your frog for the day and just going and eating that frog first. Get that thing done. You'll often find it's not as hard as you thought. You do it faster than you think. And we know this anyway, but it's nice to have a language around how to get into this zone. Because if I was to ask you, what's something that you're procrastinating about, that you're feeling bad about, that you're a bit guilty, that you should have done by now, your brain will start to shut down and you'll start to think, I don't want to tell you because it's really bad. Like, I should have done this thing by now. I'm embarrassed. But if I was to just say to you, what's your frog for the day? It's a different language. It's a different mood, and it can help you share more openly. So this is if you were sharing with your team, working with your colleagues, but also just the language we use with ourselves can make a big difference as well. Now, in Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he called this big rocks. So you can use the phrase big rock, which basically do the big rocks first. So this is the idea of eating frogs. One of our ninjas in the UK, I loved her description. That was, if you eat a frog first thing, everything else in that day will taste sweet. So it's like, once you've got that difficult thing done, everything else will taste sweet. Now, I just want to check in with you all. I'm just looking at the chat here. Excellent. Great. Oh, there's more people logged on now. Thanks for joining, everyone. Really appreciate that. Another really good way to help us get some momentum, to help us with preventing procrastination, is to start our day well. Now, feel free to grab a screenshot of this or something. The recording of this will be on our YouTube channel later, probably tomorrow, and I'll share with you all the link for that. But grab a screenshot of this. Starting our day with momentum. A difficult thing, I acknowledge it's difficult, is to start by not opening your email. Before you open your email, write down 5 things that are going to make the most impact today. And one of those things should be your frog, definitely a frog on there. And these 5 things are coming out of your master action list. The master action list is your whole menu, you know, You get to choose. It's multiple choice. You get to choose from the master action list what you're going to do today. But it's really important to do this. We call this boss thinking. Really important to do this boss thinking up front. So when you get into worker mode, you've got these 5 priorities. It's much easier to get things done. And as you're doing this and you're planning and you're prioritizing, just think about, being mindful of your energy, your priorities, what's going on today, what other things you have to think about today, what other commitments you have today. So, because we can't over plan. If we over plan and overcommit, that will also freak us out. So when you're planning for the day, you've got to look at your calendar and you've got to work out how many meetings do I have today. And so this whole process in the morning only needs to take you 5 or 10 minutes. And I will take a minute to tell you a little story here, a little bit off script, but I think this is really important. And by the way, as you can tell, there is no script. I once heard a meditation teacher say, everyone should meditate for 10 minutes a day unless they don't have time. And those people should meditate for half an hour. Right? So this is a similar thing. In my view, everyone should do this unless you don't have time. And that's the catch, isn't it? If you think you don't have time to do this, it's even more important that you do it. Because if you think you don't have time, you're already in panic mode, right? So I will be sending you a follow-up email and it will have a link to a checklist, which is very similar to this, a slightly different formatting, but you can choose which checklist is going to work for you. But the essential thing is get started in your day with some of this really good thinking. Now, another part of procrastination is our distractions. And by the way, this session will go for about half an hour in total, and I'll stay around at the end for questions. I realize I'm not pausing for questions as we go, but I want to respect your time, and I'll stay at the end for questions and anyone that has specific questions. Stealth mode. Let's talk about stealth mode. When we're getting our work done, we can be so distracted by our digital technology, our phones, our computers, and we can be distracted by people. So it's really important when we're doing that Pomodoro technique, setting that timer, or doing what we call a power hour, getting a focused hour, like getting that done for the day. It makes us feel so good. Managing these things. And we do have control over a lot. We can turn our phone off or put it on Do Not Disturb. We can turn our Outlook offline. There's a button there, work offline in Outlook. Really good tip in Outlook that we really, I don't want to say force, we really encourage people to do in our Inbox to Zero workshop. Put their Outlook offline. If you're using Gmail, there's a way to turn Gmail offline as well. You've just got to go into the settings. I'm happy to help with that separately if any of you want help with that. And there's an app here called Forest. I don't use Forest, but it's the concept of Forest I want to share. Some people love it. I have used it. It's just a countdown timer. It's cute. You set the timer, you let it count down. If you don't navigate away from the app, it plants a little tree for you. If you do navigate away from the app to look at your emails, your Facebook, your WhatsApp, whatever, the tree dies. Now, Forest, the company that creates these apps, they've got a few other apps in their suite, including a sleep app and a personality test app. They actually do plant real trees as well. So because the app costs a couple of dollars, I think. I used to use it. I've played with it. I just find the countdown timer on the phone is more simple for me. But some people get encouraged by the visual aspect of Forest. Another important part of helping us with our procrastination is having time to catch up so we don't feel completely overwhelmed. Now, the weekly review, and this is talked about in the book and in the follow-up email I'll send you a checklist for this as well. The weekly review is a process where once a week we stop and we kind of catch up. It's 1 to 2 hours a week. We look back at what's been happening. What meetings have I been to? What commitments have I made? What have I forgotten? And we do a bit of a catch up. We gather all the mess from the week that's just happened, and then we start looking ahead as well. So it's not just looking back. We look ahead and do a bit of planning. These processes, these are part of our normal productivity ninja processes, but they can really make a difference to our procrastination because they reduce overwhelm, they reduce panic, and they add clarity. And what we're really looking for here is clarity. Something to think about in procrastination is intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Now, I won't talk about this in detail, but I do want to mention the idea of making your commitments more extrinsic. So intrinsic are just these thoughts buzzing around in our head. They can be good, they can help, we can set some goals, they can help us get momentum if we're really clear on them. But an extrinsic motivation is when we get other people to help us. And this might be as simple as putting a deadline in someone else's calendar, letting them know that you'll get this to them by a certain date, for example. In Gretchen Rubin's book, Better Than Before, which I have read, and she's done a new one called The 4 Tendencies, to just expand on her ideas from Better Than Before. She talks about the 4 tendencies, and in part of these 4 tendencies relate to our habits. And one of them is an upholder who will uphold commitments they've made to other people. So this is this idea of extrinsic motivation. If we commit something to another person, that helps us get things moving. So if you're procrastinating, make a commitment to someone else, and that'll help you move that commitment just from internal to external. Now, one of the ninja characteristics we talk about is mindfulness. It's very easy to be sort of stuck in what we're working on, feel like we're not making any progress, feeling bad about the fact that you're procrastinating, getting some guilt around this. It's really important to think about how far we've come. Give ourselves a pat on the back and say, you're doing well. I love to talk about a concept of the to-do list, which is a list of things we've done, a list of things we've finished. It's like the opposite of your to-do list. But this ninja mindfulness, this self-awareness piece is about not being so negative with ourselves, being aware of that negative talk. It can really make us get into this trap of procrastination. And today we are using these similar tools that some of you have seen before to talk about procrastination. So getting out of that mud of procrastination is really important. Now, when we think about what books can we turn to, what can we do to get help, let's be careful of the fake guru kind of state that we can get in, and we think, oh, if I just read another book, that'll give me the answer. What I want to remind everyone of this morning is that we've got it inside ourselves, and we know how to get through our procrastination. We can get help from others. That's a really good way to do it, but we can also just do it ourselves. You've got it inside you. This is the thing to know. We really do have it inside us. So reframing the way we think about how we're working, what we're doing. We don't have to go searching for the next guru, the next fake guru to help us get through things. And I'm certainly not standing here today trying to be a fake guru either, because we're all human. We're all human. You know, we all make mistakes. We all get things wrong. Human, not superhero, is one of the things we talk about at Think Productive. And so we're not superheroes. Sometimes we might look like superheroes when we are getting through our procrastination, when we're focusing on our high energy times and getting things done. We can look like a superhero, but it's really important to remember that we're not. We're all in this together. If you sometimes feel a bit of imposter syndrome or something like I do, like we all do, everyone's got imposter syndrome. We've really just got to keep doing our best, getting through the procrastination, focusing on our goals, and moving forward in these small ways. So, I'm not sure why my slides have just disappeared there. Just put in the chat for me if you can still see my slides. I've got another screen there. Can you see my slides? Sorry. Yeah, you can still see the slides. Great. Thank you. I've just got another computer at the side here, and for some reason the slides disappeared on that. So that was interesting timing because I've just wrapped up anyway. So if you want more information on this, there's a great podcast that Graham's got called Beyond Busy, where he talks to people about life and what's going on. We do a whole range of workshops at Think Productive, which I know a lot of you are already very familiar with. So contact us at Think Productive if you want some help with, working from home, getting your inbox to zero, fixing meetings, being more productive, managing stress, all these kind of things. I do want to ask anyone if there's questions, we can stay on and have a chat, and I'll come back to that. If you want to just connect with us anonymously, you can follow us on Facebook, and also here are my contact details for you. That's my email address, matt@thinkproductive.com.au. If you've got any questions, please put them in the chat. or if you want to actually have a verbal chat, I'm very happy to unmute you in this webinar format. I can unmute you if you feel like just asking a verbal chat. Just maybe just put in the text chat that you'd like to be unmuted. But I want to wrap up. If there are no questions, I want to wrap up and say thanks everyone for coming along. Some really quick tips there. There will be a recording available, and I'll also send you an email with those follow-up details, checklists and things. Thank you for your comments. Thanks, Andrea. Thanks for coming. Lovely to see your name there. Merry Christmas to you too. If anyone has any specific questions, please let me know. Yeah, thanks, Misha. The podcast is called Beyond Busy. You can see it on the screen there, unless your screen disappeared like my other screen, which I apologize. Beyond Busy by Graham Alcott. Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, so that's the podcast. I'll also send you all an email with details on how to get a copy of the book through our Productivity Ninja Academy. Any questions? Thanks, Misha. We should do this at schools. Yeah, we do it at, we've got a session called Study Ninja, which we do at university, and we do sometimes do it at schools as well. We've done it for year 11 and 12 students. So if you have any connections in schools, let me know. Our Study Ninja workshop is absolutely perfect for that. And it's similar concept to this, but in a slightly different language. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. I'll stop the recording now, and I'll stay online if there are any questions.